Hello everyone, this is Horizonte Podcast. It's the YouTube channel of Horizonte Foundation where we publish our materials about the life of visually impaired people in Bulgaria. I'm Mishu Netkov. This video is in English because we have special guests from the United States. Dr. Elizabeth Siemens is mentor and leader in Professional Fellows program based in Ohio, USA, working with participants from all around the world. Alice is a journalist, she is visually impaired and she's been traveling a lot all around the world. Some of her professional interests include accessibility consulting for organizations and institutions. We met Elizabeth at an event of ICSS Foundation, a Bulgarian NGO, where she was a presenter. Thanks to Elizabeth for being our guest. Here's the video. Enjoy it. Hello and welcome to our studio.
Hi, Mishko. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Elizabeth or Lisa Siemens, and I am staying in Sofia, Bulgaria for a few days. I have volunteered for something called the Professional Fellows Program, which is sponsored by the U.S. State Department. It sends young leaders from Bulgaria and Romania, Hungary, Albania, Slovakia to the United States to work on community organizing and developing their leadership. And I received a scholarship to come on this program to Bulgaria and to Slovakia and to work with museums and disability groups on making museums and historical places and cities more welcoming to people with disabilities.
Tell me something about your background, please. How did you come to the moment when you started doing this?
Ooh, it's a long story, but I have always loved the arts. My father was a librarian, and my mother was a professor. I grew up in a small town, but my parents took me to concerts, to museums, and I loved to read. I loved to write poetry, stories. In university, I studied journalism, so I liked to write. And then I had the opportunity to live in some other countries, in Russia, in Kazakhstan, in Hungary. And after I came back from those countries, I worked in the federal government in the United States and in the state government. But I kept my love of books and I published a book. And when I was giving talks about my book in museums and in the arts community, sometimes I said, look, I know you want to be friendly to everyone. I know you want to invite everyone. This on your website or this in your museum is a problem because da-da-da-da-da. But if you did this or look at this website or this museum, they really solved it and maybe you could try that.
So have the good examples.
Yes, the good examples and the positive, not saying, oh, you're stupid, your museum is no good, but being friendly to them. And 3 museums and 1 artist came to me and they said, we like your approach and we would like to work with you to help us be more friendly for visitors with disabilities.
It's interesting because they looked for you. It wasn't you going to them, but they came to you.
They came to me. This was amazing. Yeah.
Okay, that means that they are looking for change and they are looking for some way to access people with disabilities.
Yes, to welcome people. Yes.
Okay. And what about your book? What kind of book was it?
Sure. Well, I'll talk about 2 books. The one that I published, the name of it is The Lyra and the Cross. And lyra like the Greek instrument, not money.
Okay.
The book happens in the Roman Empire at the time of Jesus Christ. And some characters in the book are Jews. Some characters are Greeks. Some of them are very believing in God. Some are not. And it is their story of how these cultures mix together. We think today, 2,000 years later, we think, oh, the Greeks, the Romans, the Thracians. We don't realize a country like Bulgaria, you had cultures from all over going through Bulgaria, and there was always a mix. So in this book, it is a story of spirits, but it's really a story of how the cultures understood each other and how people came together or did not come together, depending on their cultural outlook.
Okay. And the other book?
Yes. The other one I want to publish. So when I was 24, I had the opportunity to go to the then USSR, the Soviet Union. It was my first time going. It was a traveling exhibit sponsored by the federal U.S. government about American life. And they hired me as one of 24 guides. I had studied Russian, and I had volunteered in the USA with Russian immigrants, helping them with their English or helping them with other things. So I spoke Russian. And I went for 7 months to the USSR and really represented my country. Every day, so as a journalist, I had just finished my journalism. I took a typewriter. I didn't have a computer. Every day I typed a journal. And during the pandemic, I was able to get the journal online, or, well, electronic form, look through it, and decide what parts of this journal are really interesting today, especially with the sad situation in Russia today. And I lived in 3 very different cities. I lived in Chisinau, Moldova, and then in Almaty, Kazakhstan, and then in Novosibirsk. So very different cities. And I wrote about the people I met, and I really want to publish this book because I think it's important for us to try to understand each other.
It really sounds amazing.
It was an amazing experience.
Okay. Was this the moment when you met your husband? You said that
yes.
You were married in Russia or in the United States? I don't know,
but, I did. I met my first husband in Novosibirsk because I was an interpreter, and he was a doctor, is a doctor, and we had a doctor traveling on our American exhibit, and the 2 doctors wanted to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So he invited the doctor and me as interpreter, and we began to fall in love. Yeah.
Okay. Now you have a child?
Yes, and her name is Sophia.
Okay.
She is 27 years old, and she, like her father and like her grandmother, was interested in public health. So she studied public health, and she now lives in Switzerland.
Can you tell me something about how does it feel like being to be visually impaired and to be a volunteer?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I find that very empowering. In the past, I have been, as I mentioned, I've been an interpreter, and usually as a visually impaired person, I'm the one who maybe doesn't know something. But when I'm doing interpreting, I'm the one who knows the languages. I'm the one who can help people. And when I do volunteer work, historically people think, people with disabilities need to receive help. They don't always think, someone who can't hear or can't see or can't walk, they also have real gifts, real talents, and maybe they can share their ability. So for me, we all want to feel strong, and we all want to feel useful. And to me, being a volunteer is a great feeling of positive power.
Okay. But maybe sometimes it's a little bit hard because you have to change the places. You have to meet new people all the time. For example, for me, it's hard when I have to meet 5 or 10 new people. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to remember their names,
yes.
To remember where's the toilet, where's everyone standing. So how do you manage to do this?
There's a good Russian expression. It says "Yazyk do Kiyeva vedyot," which means if you ask, you can go all the way to Kiev.
Okay.
Maybe not today, but anyway. Okay. No, so I'm not afraid to ask. When I was younger, I was afraid, but now I'm more self-confident. I do try, if I need to know something, I try to, in my mind, get some map of where I am. I do see just a little bit, and being low vision I know it's easier than being absolutely no vision. But I would say 99% of people, if you say, excuse me, where's the restroom? Or, excuse me, I don't recognize your voice. What is your name? 99% of sighted people are happy to tell you, or they don't look down on you. In fact, they usually think, oh, if I were blind, I could never do that. Yeah. So it's often an exchange, like I can help you with this and you can help me with this.
There was something more about where did you learn so many foreign languages?
Okay. Sure. Well,
how many languages do you speak except English and Russian?
I'll give you my language history. So first, let me say, blind people usually listen a lot because our eyes don't give us information. So even when I was little, I loved sounds like a bird song or even a door that made an interesting sound. But I was really fascinated by languages. Languages are my passion.
Okay.
But living in America, unfortunately, most American schools do not begin to teach language until ninth form, until high school. So I had no opportunity to study a language until I was 12 or 13 years old. But I had a great French teacher in high school. And I was passionate to learn it. And every chance I could, I spoke French. I just really tried. I was serious. Then after high school, I was very lucky. I had the chance to go as an exchange student. So from the United States, from my state of Ohio, I went to Switzerland and I lived in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. But my host father was a German teacher, and he saw I was really interested. So he began to teach me, and I studied also in the Gymnasium, the academic high school, studied German also, and, well, just 1 year of Italian. So I studied German and then a little German in college. After that, in my master's program, I had the chance to study Russian, and I studied it, but I also made some Russian friends. So between the academic study and that, I was able to quickly learn a lot of Russian, studying every day. And finally, you might know the organization called Peace Corps. It's an American, it's an American volunteer organization. Yeah. And I was in Peace Corps after I was in Russia. I went to Hungary. So I taught English in Hungary, but I wanted to learn Hungarian. So my Hungarian and my German are not perfect, but I learned enough to talk.
Oh, it's very hard to study, isn't it? It sounds like nothing else.
It sounds like nothing else. The grammar is very different, but it's very logical. Once you understand the internal logic, then you can learn it.
Okay.
But no, it is not easy.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds like you have traveled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And many visually impaired people are afraid to get out of their comfort zone or of the place where they live. What would you say about that?
I would say that learning foreign languages really helps. It does. Because if you are visually impaired and you go to a country where you don't know the language, it's like you are blind and you are deaf. So, so it does help to know a language. It helps to ask the right question. So not just, for example, not where is the restroom, but you could say, oh, do I go to the left here or to the right to the restroom?
Yeah, okay.
So to be specific. And it helps to smile and seem self-confident. So you're not like, oh, I'm blind. Can you help me find the restroom? For example, tomorrow I'm going from Sofia to Burgas. I try, if I can, to ask someone to meet me at the other end. So if that's possible. So for example, my friend who will meet me on the other end is actually also visually impaired, but we both have canes, and I can make a sound with my cane, and he can hear that, and he can find me.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your presentation yesterday, where you met Glika and me? What was it all about?
Yes. Well, first of all, I just am so happy that we met. That was the best thing of the presentation.
Me too.
This was a group of university administrators who are working with students with disabilities. And they invited me to speak, and I decided to speak about the general ways in the USA that universities and colleges make accommodations for students with disabilities. So I was very general in talking, and Aglika was there, and she came to me, and actually, at the end of my presentations, sometimes I say, if you want to see my notes, and I bring up my Braille notes as a joke. Yeah. And for the first time in my life, Aglika came to me. She said, may I have your notes, really? May I have them? It's the first time ever. I said, yes, you may have my notes, because it's my only time to speak about this here. Yeah. But I was talking also about how it has changed so much since I was a student in the 1980s. It's really a different
What's
generation.
changed?
Okay. Number one, of course, as you know, the technology has changed a lot. So when I was a student, I used cassette tapes, I used readers, people reading to me, Braille. Today, because of computer technology and internet, of course, it's so much easier to research and do things. It's like a different world. The other thing is, in 1990, there was a law passed in the United States called the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA. And this act made requirements for many, many things, but also education. So it required universities to have an Office of Disability Services. Now, it didn't say everything the office must do, but it made that requirement. Now, when I was in college, because the colleges were good colleges, they wanted to, they did have small offices, but that was before it was required.
Okay. How was it for you when you were in the university?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, let me briefly go back to school. When I was in school,
okay.
I studied in a blind school and in a blind class until I was about 9 years old. And after that, I went to normal public school.
So you changed the school,
yes.
And you tried both systems?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Correct.
good.
Correct. And the academics were okay. I was never a bad student. But socially, I was the first student with a visible disability in those schools, and the other children really didn't know how to treat me. Either they were afraid of me, or they didn't like me, or socially it was a very unhappy childhood in normal schools. So in college, university, fortunately, the students had grown up. They were much better. And so I was happy that my experience, both my social and my academic experience, were so much better in college than in...
But you have also changed, and you were maybe much more flexible then.
Probably. Yeah, probably. Mm-hmm.
And what about the special school for the blind and low vision children?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so when I went there, I learned Braille, and most blind students at that time did learn Braille in the school. Unfortunately, now, many visually impaired students do not learn Braille. Either they don't have teachers, or the teachers say, well, you can still read a little bit of print, you don't need it now, but they do need it because many of their vision will become worse. So I feel very lucky that I learned Braille. And today, also a difference. When I was in school, most blind children or most deaf children went to these schools, the special schools. Today, if you are only blind or only deaf, usually it's the parents' choice and the family's choice, but usually you go to a normal school, public school. But students who are what we call blind plus or deaf plus, meaning more than one disability, often they go to the school for the blind or the school for the deaf.
So if you go now to the school for the blind children, you will find most of them with multiple disabilities.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I think this is what happens in Bulgaria too.
Okay.
What do you think about this process?
I think it is very important for those children also to get as much education as they can.
Yeah.
I really think it's important. I think generally, even though it is very difficult socially sometimes for blind children or for deaf children in public schools, when they grow up, they will be in the public world. So I think it's important for them to have the experience, even if it's not so easy, to be with other students, and sometimes they navigate their way. Sometimes they find good ways. Some of them find friends. I only had one friend, but my friend was really a great friend in high school. And the parents often don't prepare their children enough. I think the parents often want to do too much for their children, and the parents are afraid. I understand. I have a daughter. I don't want my daughter to be hurt. You don't want your daughter to be hurt, of course. But sometimes you have to let your children make mistakes or learn in difficult ways. I think at the blind schools or the deaf schools, I think if a teacher or if a parent, if they have high expectations and hope, the children will feel that.
Yeah.
And if they're just being the babysitter, they will also feel that. So I think it depends on the teachers a lot and on the family.
But this can happen in a regular school also?
Yes, I agree. Yes, it can.
So what's the best, in my opinion, it's the best if you have both, and if the child or the parents can choose.
Yes, and I think it's very, very important for children to learn what we call blindness skills.
Yeah.
So learning Braille, learning technology, learning a white cane, learning if they want a dog, how to get a dog, learning socially, like you need to look at a sighted person. Even if you don't see them, they see you. So they need to learn those things, either in school or in their family or both. And I think blind schools are good for that. But I think that because they will live in the real world and hopefully work in the real world, it's important to feel normal society around them and have contact with that. So I think the public schools are good for that. I agree. Actually, my school where I went, they have a combined program for high school with that school and a normal public school close to them. So actually, sometimes the students get that mixed experience, and I think it's good.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about your experience in Russia, because you have been on many places around the world.
Some things are the same. So if you are sighted in society or you are blind in society, some problems are similar. But for example, when I lived in Novosibirsk, the winter in Siberia is very long and very cold.
It is.
So for people who are blind or mobility impairments, being on the street for maybe 5-6 months a year is a little bit difficult. In the United States, on the other hand, it's difficult because 95%, 99% of adults drive a car. And cities are designed assuming that you have a car and you can drive. So transportation is a big problem in the United States in most places for blind people. The attitude of people is different in different places. Americans are often very friendly. They really are. But sometimes they're a little bit afraid of someone with a disability. I think here, people are also rather friendly, but maybe not, I don't know, maybe not quite so afraid. Although tomorrow I'm going to the School for the Blind. I wish I could answer your question after tomorrow, but yeah, I respect, even though I know, for example, the blind unions have problems. I know they do.
Yeah.
But at least they exist.
Yeah.
In the USA, we don't have a government blind union. We do have a government library for the blind, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But the organizations are private, and they can be good organizations, but sometimes I wish they had more, I wish more people knew about them. I wish they were more public.
Maybe being private means for some organization more control of what they are exactly doing, how useful they are for people, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
There are two major organizations private organizations for blind people in the United States, and in some ways they're different. The leadership will make the decisions, the leadership of the organizations. Some things they agree on. For example, they agree that Braille is very important.
Yeah.
But for example, one organization says we don't need audio signals at traffic lights. People just need to learn. The other says no, traffic lights and audio signals are important. One of them focuses more on technology. It says learn technology, and if your business has a website that is not accessible, we might take you to court.
Yeah.
The other one focuses more on, for example, audio description of movies, of entertainment, which is also important. So cultural life versus, technical, they're a little different from each other, but they both do important work.
Yeah. But do they work together?
Oh, sorry. No.
No.
They, okay, in recent years, it's a little better, but one of them broke off from the other one about 60 years ago. And they had big power fights and who wanted what. It was, yeah. And that's the problem sometimes, that if, for example, say you are a senator or representative, and one blindness organization comes to you and says, please do this, and the other comes to you and says, please don't do this, then you'll do nothing. You say, oh, even those blind people can't agree. So they need, really, blind people or people generally with disabilities need to agree on many more things so they can be more powerful together.
I can imagine, but maybe it's not easy for that senator to take that decision, because anyway he's going to do something wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
There will be always someone saying it's wrong.
Yes.
But it's part of being senator, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Right.
Okay. Would you like to say something about the way that the blind people and visually impaired people in the United States choose their profession?
Yes.
Are there any particular professions that are very popular?
I worked in a state government organization that you do not have in Bulgaria. We call it vocational rehabilitation. What it means, it's a government agency that tries to help people of all disabilities to find work.
Okay.
So maybe you are a teenager, you were born blind, and you're trying to decide, do I want to work on telephones? Do I want to work in technology? Do I want to work as a radio announcer? They can help you with testing, training. Maybe you're an older person and you lose your vision, or you lose your hearing, or you have an accident, you cannot walk, and you worked maybe as a truck driver. They say, well, you can't be a truck driver now, but you have a lot of experience and you could maybe teach truck driving to younger people. So we try to work with them. But many blind people in the USA, so first of all, unfortunately, many of them, and especially people who lose their vision as they're older, many of them do not work. Many, a high percent, more than 50%. But common jobs for blind people are telemarketing or working on the phone. There is some federal hiring. So, for example, our tax office, our federal tax office, our federal pensions office, which we call Social Security. But you can find blind people doing almost anything. I mean, many work in radio, of course, they're interested. Some are musicians. Some are, like we heard yesterday in the presentations, massage therapists. There is a diversity of work.
Why there are so many people who don't work?
There are different answers. Some people, and I'm sure you have met people who are sighted who lose their vision. It's like their world ends. they truly are lost. They don't know. They don't know Braille. They don't know about white cane. Their social status really changes. Maybe before they had the power, now people are saying, oh, what does he want to drink? Instead of, hey, Mishka, what do you want to drink?
Yeah.
It's a huge difference. So some people who lose their vision, or people who grow up with parents who say, oh, you poor thing, they never believe in themselves.
No.
So that's one reason. Another reason, and this is a very sad reason, I know blind people who try and try and try, and employers do not hire them. And after the 20th, 50th interview, they just say, yeah, no one wants to hire me, so I will just accept my small pension and live on it. And some blind people don't have good social skills. They haven't learned to look at another sighted person. They haven't learned soft skills, so
they don't know how to behave when they go to an interview.
Yeah.
And once they start working, they maybe it's a little bit hard for them to participate,
yes.
to get a part of a team.
Yes, sometimes that's true. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if they can have a mentor or someone at work who's willing, just when they come, hey, let me show you where the restroom is. Let me show you something, just like orient them. And my agency did that. My agency helped with that sometimes, which was great, actually. Mental health and people with disabilities is complicated. If you have a disability from your childhood, you always feel a little different. I mean, I always feel a little different. Now, that doesn't always mean bad, but it can be lonely or it can be difficult. But I also know friends with disabilities who go to, say, a psychologist. And the psychologist, number one, they have no preparation for disability psychology. But number two, maybe I'm going, just let me say for a small example, maybe I'm going because I'm pregnant and I really am afraid to be a mother. Now, maybe that's because I have a disability, but maybe it's other things. Maybe I'm an only child and didn't have experience and I don't know what to do. But the psychologists might first look, oh yeah, they're blind, we need to work on this. And they think that the disability is the big problem, and sometimes it's really not. Sometimes it's something completely different. But for the psychologist, because in their mind the disability is so big, they think of that usually. But then on the other hand, they're usually not so prepared for it. So yeah, it's a difficult situation.
Sometimes there are things that can hide behind disabilities.
Yes.
Like our fears or situations when we just miss our experience.
Yes.
It's very hard to understand which is disability and which is not disability.
Yes,
because you cannot change the disability.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you cannot change the other things that hide behind the disability.
Yes, no. I completely agree.
Yeah. It's a little bit complicated when you are not totally blind and you are not sighted, obviously, because sometimes it's a little bit hard for the people to recognize you as a visually impaired person. And sometimes I use my white cane and sometimes I don't use it.
Yeah.
It depends on the light, on on many different things. And I can feel the reaction of people around me is totally changing if I'm with or without the white cane.
I 100% agree. And as a low vision person, sometimes I feel like my life is in the shadowland. I see too much to be called totally blind, but absolutely don't see to be sighted. And you're right, it's an in-between world, it's a balancing world. Now me, if I go out by myself, 99% of the time, even if I know where I'm going, I use my white cane because I want other people to know, especially drivers, that yes, I have a disability. So I'm careful, but maybe I make some mistake. And also, if I'm in a big crowd, it makes it easier because people usually move a little bit when they see that I'm blind, and they don't think, oh, why is she being rude? Or why is she not? Why is she in my way? So actually, alone, I almost always use it. If I'm with a friend, Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But for me, the white cane is also my safety to tell other people. But I'm careful. Like, I don't just say to them, oh, yeah, I have a credit card here. Can you help me get my money? I mean, of course, you have to be careful with people.
Yeah. When I go to the shop and I say, I would like to have some cheese. And they ask me, what kind of cheese would you like? And I said, please tell me what kind of cheese do you have?
Yeah.
And they say, no, we can't tell you what kind of cheese because there are too many kinds of cheese.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm visually impaired. I cannot see it. Okay, and they answer, have a look at the label. It's in front of you. No, I can't read it. Look at it. You are not looking at it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not looking at it because I can't read it. And then he said, okay, I will give you the cheapest one.
So sometimes I go to a store by myself too. And there are several things I try to do. Number one, when I go in, I try to have a very clear idea, what do I want?
Yeah.
Number two, so I want soft white cheese from France. If you don't have that, okay, how about soft yellow cheese from I don't know, Germany?
Yeah.
Number two, I try, if I can, to go early in the morning or late in the evening when there are not so many people, so that it's easier for someone to help me. Number three, I do ask, like, do you have anything on sale if I want cheese, maybe.
Yum.
But trying to pick the time and, if I can, have the most exact idea in my mind. And yeah, of course, and I know you do this too, being polite. All those things help. And if you go to a store often, people know you, and they often will help you.
Choose the small store.
Yes, a small store, right, exactly. Yeah. My husband does most of the shopping he drives his car, goes somewhere. But it was very important for me when we decided where to live. I said, I must have a bus stop close to me. I must, if I can, have a store, a drugstore. And if I can, I'd like to have some restaurants and some sports things nearby, somewhere I can walk. Yeah. And luckily, we really found a very nice place with that, almost all of those things. And very fortunately, too, I am a tall but small person, and I walk, and I like to walk. Many Americans, they drive so much, or many Americans are overweight, and so walking is some kind of a barrier, or they don't. But me, I love to walk. I love to do those things. So we have 2 or 3 basic certifications in visual impairment. One is called VRT, or Vision Rehabilitation Therapist. So they work with skills like cooking, life skills. Sometimes they often know Braille. Yeah. We have another one called O&M, Orientation and Mobility. So that is working with travel and skills with a white cane or with a dog. And we have teachers of visually impaired. So sometimes the teacher of visually impaired has one or both of these qualifications. It's education, but it's also a certificate program, so you must pass a state test to qualify with those specializations. I respect our specialists in visual impairment, but sometimes the instincts of a parent or the instincts of another person can be very strong. I'll give you one small example. You always wonder, where do you need to sign your name on a document? Yeah, because you don't know. Now, people can put your hand with a pen, for example. One time I was in a store and I paid with a credit card, and the woman at the cash register said, oh, just a minute. And she took the credit card receipt that I needed to sign, and she folded it so there was a line I could feel. And she said, here, where I folded it, just sign on that line. And it was brilliant. I mean, it was a tiny thing, but she thought of it. And I thought, wow, you should go to school and become a vision rehabilitation therapist, because you have the creativity and you're not afraid. And you did that. And So I think some people just have an overall feeling for it. Children who grow up with adults who are blind often really learn quickly to do things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that many people who are blind feel like they lose their prestige because they become kind of an object. You know, what does he want? What does she want?
Yeah.
And even when I was a little girl, my mother and I laughed because if we went to a restaurant, the waiter or the waitress always said, you know, what does she want to eat? And my mother, of course, before that she read me the menu, so I knew. My mother, in this sweet, sweet voice, she would say, I don't know. Maybe you should ask her. And it was like our joke. We could have been angry, but we really made it a joke. Like, this is so stupid that they're asking that person. But it is. The lack of eye contact, it's a problem. And if I feel it happening to me, like, for example, I'm at an airport and I'm with someone who is walking me to the desk for the tickets. If they say, you know, who is traveling? I'll say, I am traveling, only me. And I give them my passport. I give them, you know, the information. I don't let them talk to the other person. The only time I let them talk to the other person is if I do not ask for disability assistance. If that other person wants to go with me, then maybe they will say, okay, go that way and then turn to the right and you'll see B2. Like, okay, if that person goes with me, that's fine. But if not, I want to be the object of I want to be in the conversation.
Yeah. Tell me about the guide dogs in the United States.
Yeah. So you see a lot of guide dogs on the media, and people know that people who are blind use guide dogs. Also, other disabilities also have dogs in the USA, sometimes someone in a wheelchair or someone who is deaf or even someone who has epilepsy. So it's not only for people who are blind. There are about 15 schools, dog schools in the USA, and there is a big demand for dogs, but they have very serious application. They ask, you know, are you healthy enough?
Yeah.
Can you walk with the dog every day?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have enough money if the dog is sick? You know, can you take the dog to the veterinary? Do you like dogs?
Do you have place to go with them?
Yes. All those, exactly.
Yeah.
So there is a very serious interview process. To answer your other question, yes, guide dogs, by law, guide dogs can go everywhere. Yes, but this is an example of a recent disability problem. Many of our Uber or Lyft or taxi drivers in the USA, many of them come from other countries. And some of them come from Muslim countries where dogs culturally are considered dirty.
Yeah.
And it's also true, even if you like dogs, if a dog is in your taxi, even a clean dog will lose fur and you must clean after. So there are drivers who do not want to take a person with a dog. And this is something that the blindness organizations are fighting. They try to tell the taxi companies, and by law, yes, the taxi driver must, but it's very hard to prove, you know, he didn't take me because I have a dog. But yes, they can go anywhere. And blind people in the USA, I think it's like some people like tea more, some people like coffee more. I personally just want a cane. I don't want a dog. You either really want a cane or you really want a dog. It's usually a strong feeling either way. Well, thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for doing this and for interviewing me, Mieszko. I would say my message is people are much more capable than we think they are. If you expect good things and you expect success, usually people will do that. And if you expect failure, or they expect failure, usually they will do that. So don't be afraid as a sighted person or a blind person. Just go to the day with some courage and know that there will be difficult things and know you will make some mistakes, but know that if you do your best, that you will move forward. And when you look back, you will see after 1 week or 1 month or 1 year, wow, I really learned that. It's like my studying Hungarian a little bit every day. Yeah, it seems like every day it's so slow and da-da-da. But then I think, ooh, 6 months ago, I couldn't say that. So believe in yourself and believe in other people too. Give them that respect. That's my message. For me, I have 3 most important identities. The third, number 3, is being an artist. So my writing, I feel like I will leave that in the world for others, and I love to write and to be able to do that and to share. My second is being a globalist. So yes, I am American, but I love the world, and I love to travel, and I love to speak with people and learn from people in other parts of the world, because there's so much we don't know. And I love not to know, but I love to learn it. And my first identity is as a child of God and a child of Jesus Christ, that my faith is absolutely the most important thing for me. And it helps me to love people. It helps me to, all the other things that's my foundation. And I wish all of you blessing and peace in our world. And even if you don't believe in God, it never hurts to say, hey, it's a new morning, God, here I am. So just try it once and see what happens. That's my message.
Thank you very much for being our guest. We will keep this video in 2 ways. We'll translate it in Bulgarian, but we will also publish the original video in English, and we will share it with you.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Благодаря.